Hey everybody, Steve Huber here. I hope you're doing awesome. Hey, if you're a 5, 10, 15, $20 million a year contractor and you want to get bigger, you want to be a 30, 40, $50 million company, I'm going to break down something for you today that you're probably missing right now. And that is a real sales department. So we're not talking about like a couple of sales guys and your cousin that's a sales manager, or we're not even talking about a CRM or nothing like that. This is a real sales department. This is one where you can actually see what's happening. You know what deserves your attention every day. You hold the right people accountable. You eventually take your sales manager hat off one day as the owner and get back to running the company instead of working in it all the time. And because if you're like most contractors, look, I talk to a lot of people at this stage. You're wearing a lot of hats right now. You are the owner, and whether you call yourself this or not, you're probably still the sales manager over here too. And, you know, maybe you've got a sales manager, but you're still managing them all the time. And a lot of times you're still wondering, are we watching the right numbers? Is the guy actually doing a good job? Do we need more salespeople? Like, what is actually happening here? Should I fix this? Should I leave it alone? And underneath all of those questions is usually the same uncomfortable thought. I know we could do better. I just don't know what we should be doing. And I've spent most of my career actually building and managing sales teams inside home service companies. So, when I joined Peterson Dean, we were a very small company. We ended up growing that over $300 million a year in our Solar for America and Roofs for America and HVAC for America brands that we had in dozens of states. When I went to Semper Solaris, same kind of thing. We grew that eventually to a multi-$100 million a year company. In fact, here's a review from John, the owner, talking about how I helped him do $80 million in 60 days. There's also GEF Capital, which is a private equity company on the East Coast. They had a portfolio company that I came in and helped them with. We took them from roughly $6 million a year to a $20 million a year run rate in 6 months. And again, you can read Ted's review right here. He is a partner over at GEF. We figured out that there were some markets we should shut down. We could triple sales. We could increase marketing. We could increase profit and do all those things. I know it was just a blast to work with those guys. Same with my buddy Casey over at True Roofing. His win actually looked totally different. Casey already knew sales. In fact, Casey was a sales manager at another company that I was running the sales department with. So he's actually one of my sales managers, and he started his own company. And the problem was when he started his own company, the sales department basically lived in his head. And sometimes it's really hard to fix the problem when you are the problem. And so we just helped Casey, who's this really great dude, helped him get his numbers organized and really just put process around what he was already doing and get clear about who he needed to hire, what that person needed to do, and all of those things, and just really solidified the things that were in his head. And so it gave Casey the confidence to bring in a salesperson who could actually run appointments without Casey having to be there, without him having to do anything. So Casey could get back to doing the work that the business needed him to do instead of just being the sales guy every day. So these are all different companies with different problems, but there's this common thread that runs through all of them. And it's this: eventually you reach a point where you can't grind your way to the next level. You can't just hustle your way on through it. And that's the point I want to talk about today. Because there's this funny thing that happens when a contractor says, we need more sales. And it's the number one thing that I get from contractors that come to us to say, I need to sell more. Everybody almost always immediately starts getting to work trying to fix sales. So the close rate's down. We better train the sales guys. Revenue's down. We need better closers. We're not growing fast enough. Let's just hire more people. You know, the sales manager isn't hitting their numbers. Maybe we need a new guy. And look, sometimes those things are true. Sometimes you have problems that they are what you think they are, and they just need to be fixed. But I'm telling you right now, a lot of times they're not. I remember this one company I worked with. The owner was convinced they had a sales problem and they needed more sales. And he wanted us to come in and help work with him on close rate. Which it makes sense, right? Like if sales are down, let's get our close rate going. And that's where we really need to put a lot of work is in closing. We're just not selling enough deals. And so we actually looked at the numbers, and here's what happened. So it was kind of ridiculous. So they were only answering the phone about 10% of the time. So think about that. Like literally the phone would ring 100 times. They'd answer it 10 times. And out of the opportunities, out of the 10, they closed about half. And so the owner is sitting here looking at 5 sales and saying, we need to work on objection handling. I need to get a better close rate. We should be at more. But in reality, that's not the problem at all. If we take the 50% close rate and we somehow make it a 60% close rate, which I want to be clear here, a 50% close rate is terrific if you're priced right, okay? But if we got it magically to 60, if we sold roughly one more job, that would be the outcome. But what would happen if we just left the salespeople alone and we just answered the phone more? Like we just solved the actual real problem, which was we were only answering the phone 1 out of 10 times. What if we answered it 6 out of 10 times? We could literally 6x the company by getting 6 times the opportunity. Same salespeople, same close rate, completely wildly different results. And that's the problem with managing sales by how you feel. You naturally try and fix things that you understand or things that you enjoy or something that somebody complained about this morning. If you understand recruiting, everything's a staffing problem. If you're nervous about close rate, the second it drops, everybody gets dragged into another objection handling session. And so, meanwhile, like the real constraint could be sitting right there. And it's actually drastically simpler to solve, but you can't see it. And this happens all the time. And that's how companies and contractors work incredibly hard on things that don't really matter. It's also how owners start losing confidence in their people. I don't think my sales manager is doing a good job. Something I hear constantly. It's like, okay, cool. Like based on what? Why would you feel that your sales manager is not doing a good job? And usually the response to that question is, well, I just feel like we should be doing more. And again, you may be right, but you also may be wrong. Maybe your sales manager doesn't suck. Like maybe marketing's handing them garbage every day. Maybe you don't have enough reps. Maybe recruiting's doing a phenomenal job, but your onboarding process is chewing up every good person that you put into it. Maybe the market changed. Maybe your expectations were wrong in the first place. Maybe the smartest thing you should be doing this week is to just stop touching anything because it actually is working pretty damn well. But you don't know because you can't see it. And here's the thing, guys. I'm telling you this as a guy that's built some pretty crazy companies from ground zero. This gets more dangerous as the company gets built bigger. So at $5 million, you can cover a lot of cracks with hustle, $5, $10, $15 million. You can jump into sales meetings. You can save the deal. You can fix whatever problem broke today. But you can't do that at 20, 30, 40, 50, 100, 200, $300 million. It will not work. I see all the time contractors that are working incredible hours, risking incredible amounts of money, and they're stuck. And eventually just the business becomes too big for you to compensate for your lack of a system. And that's ultimately where just a lot of really great contractors, transparently, like a lot of really great people get stuck there. They know something has to change, but the change feels risky because you've already built something good. And one of the things I see all the time is you've built a great company. You're making more money than you've ever made. You've got employees who depend on you. You've got customers who need you. You've got a reputation. You have a real company, but you're working a ridiculous amount of hours just to keep the whole thing moving. And then all of a sudden, somebody comes up to you. By the way, you should hire a sales manager. You're like, well, yeah, I know that. That sounds great, but how do I do it? What does a great sales manager look like? How do I interview one? What should they own? What numbers should they bring you? How often do I meet with them? How do I know if they're even good? How long do I give them before I fire them? How do I know if the problem's the manager or something around them? Those are all questions that I hear all the time. And here's the scary part. If you hire a bad sales manager, there's a lot of damage that can be done. You're putting the wrong manager into a good sales team and people leave. You burn months and years, you burn piles of cash, you screw it up, and your culture that you took years to build can go backwards. And so the owners end up getting stuck in this weird ground. I know I can't keep doing this myself, but I don't trust handing this to somebody else because I'm not even sure what I should be handing them. You've been trying to delegate a department that you haven't actually built. And I see this with contractors that try to make the jump. They tried to hire a sales manager and they turn over the sales manager over and over and over and over and over again. And so here's really the whole principle of why I started my company to begin with. I believe the best contractors, the ones that really give a shit, the ones that do great work for their community, they take great care of their employees, they want to be good contractors. They're almost never the big contractors. And I think it's a shame. I think there's phenomenal contractors all over the country who care really, truly deeply about their customers. They do good work. They honor their commitments. They pay their bills. They treat their employees well. They take pride in what they do. But a lot of them are just terrible at building and running sales teams. And so they stay super small. They stay stuck. They stay in the shadows. And so meanwhile, another company that may not do nearly as good of a job for the homeowner has figured out sales. Like they figured out sales and marketing. That's what they do. They're not great tradespeople, but they know how to sell and market. They figure out how to build a sales team and they become the big company in your country or your state or your city. They become rich. And I just want to help bridge that gap. I want great contractors to build great businesses. I want contractors who actually give a shit about the customer to be able to grow to 20, 30, 50 million bucks a year and beyond. I want them to make a lot of money. I want them to create jobs. I want them to build something that really matters in their community. And I want the owner to have a life, because there's a lot of contractors that will spend 30 to 40 years building a company. They're going to get to, they'll be elderly and discover they can't leave. They built themselves into a prison. And the business still needs them every single day. They can't sell it. They can't hand it off. They can't really retire. And all those years of work, sometimes they don't even have much to show for it, unfortunately. And I don't want that to be you. And so your company should become less fragile as it becomes bigger. It should be able to move. It should be able to pivot. It should be able to operate when you're not standing right in the middle of it, holding it all together every single day. And, sales is just a huge part of making that happen. The real problem with that is that most contractors were never taught what a real sales department looks like. You maybe learned the business from another contractor. They taught you what they know. And then at some point you're like, this guy's not that smart. I can probably do better. And so you start your own contracting company. You're like, this guy's making money. Why does he own it? This place sucks. I'm going to go start my own. But because you never worked in a $50 million contracting company, how the hell are you supposed to build a $50 million contracting company? If you've never worked in a $100 million company, how are you going to build a $100 million company? You don't know what you don't know. So instead, most owners end up with three big problems. So here's problem number one. First is the unknown. You don't actually know what's happening. You don't have visibility into it. The second big problem is it's unreliable. Yes, you get results, but you don't have enough control to make those results repeatable. And the third one is inefficiency. You see, marketing has one idea, sales has another, operations pissed off about what sales sold because we can't sell it right, and finance has a different target and idea in mind. Recruiting's over here doing its own thing. Everybody's busy, but they're not pulling in the same direction. And that's exactly why I designed Sales Architect and what we designed it to fix. All right, and so with that, let me show you how we actually do this. I'm going to break the whole model down for you right now so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. And everything that we do starts with this idea that we want to build a real sales department, as we've been talking about all along. And there's really three big pillars that make the whole thing work. The first one is this idea of control. We understand what is happening, when it's happening, and everything's intentional. We used to call this revenue on demand. We are doing things with intention, not accidentally having them happen to us. So if you've ever had we blow it out of the water one month and the next month doesn't go so well, and then 1 month's here, 1 month's there, and there's sporadicness, that is the opposite of control. Real sales departments have control over things that they do. They also have visibility into what they do. They can see exactly what is happening and understand the business from a data standpoint. And then finally, we have alignment. We have everybody doing the same things. We have everybody that is pushing and rowing in the same direction. And those are really the three big pillars that make a real sales department. It's not how much we sell. It's because those things vary, right? You could be a $20 million contractor or a $200 million contractor, and those things will all shift. But control, visibility, and alignment are the things that all real sales departments have in them. Now, working with a lot of contractors, building lots of sales departments myself, there's kind of like three big hurdles that I hear all the time that prevent a lot of contractors from actually doing this. And the first one is, I'm unsure what's happening. I don't know what's really going on. And a lot of times I hear this in the sense of I'm just not sure. I think it's going okay. Yeah, we have some holes. We have some blind spots. The data's not really dialed in. All of those things are a version of I'm just not sure what is going on and what's happening. And then the next one is we're just kind of winging it. We just show up every week and we hope that it kind of all plays itself out. Everyone kind of does their own stuff and we just kind of, spray and pray and hope that it all goes well. And then finally, I got nobody that's on the same page. If you have your operations team, your finance team, your sales team, your procurement team, your install teams, and they're all kind of doing their own thing in these silos that exist, eventually that will prevent you from growing the company. And so real sales departments have everybody on the same page. And so if you are dealing with the symptoms where nobody is on the same page, again, it's a super common thing that we hear all the time. And so these are the big hurdles. Let me show you how we overcome them. And the way that we do it with our clients is we have these big milestones that we look for to make sure that we've hit. And the first one is that we know exactly what's going on. When I have an owner that we work with and that we say, hey, how did it go last month? And they know exactly what the answer is to that. That's our sign that we're in a good place. When we have, hey, why did we miss? And we know the answer to that, that's knowing what's going on. We have visibility into the overall system and what is happening so that we can actually manage it. If you can't see it, you can't manage it. And it becomes a hell of a lot easier to be successful if you can actually have visibility and to know exactly what's going on. The next thing is we want a repeatable management system. We don't want to be winging it. We want to have a cadence in how we operate. I have a company right now that we're working on really establishing the management system so that eventually they can hire in a sales manager and it just will always operate the same. They don't have to teach somebody. They don't have to rely on somebody bringing in their own management system. They already have a repeatable management system. So it's hey, sales meetings this day. Here's what we cover. Here's the numbers we go over. Here's exactly what we have happen. And here's the cool thing about repeatable management systems. There's the reality that the people that you work with today, you are probably not going to work with forever. Even if you love them and you have no intention of ever letting them go somewhere else, that's just life. They need to move. They have a family thing that comes up. They lose passion in working for you. They want to start their own company. They want a new change. They want something that goes on. And so we always have some turnover. I should say most companies have turnover, especially in sales management. And if you have to say goodbye to somebody and bring somebody new in, having a repeatable management system makes that a hell of a lot easier because you're not just winging it. You're like, this is exactly what's expected, and we know exactly how this should work and operate. We're not guessing all the time. We have control over our management system. And then finally, when we have a company that has a lot of people that are siloed, nobody's on the same page, we want everyone to know the plan. I should be able to talk to your head of sales and he knows what the plan is. I talk to your head of marketing and I get the same answer from the head of marketing. When I talk to the head of operations, they give me the same answer as the salesperson and the marketing person. Everybody knows what the plan is and is aligned on what is supposed to happen. So how do you actually go about getting these things done? Well, if you want to know exactly what's going on, what we recommend is you got to fix your blind spots. And this is the very first thing that we do with all of our clients is we make sure that there are no more blind spots. Now, I want to pause here for a quick minute. AI has made it incredibly easy to go pull 5,000 pieces of data out of whatever CRM you use. Hopefully you use the CRM and throw up all kinds of information on people. That can be disastrous. It's almost sometimes like having no data at all. Imagine you're trying to put together a puzzle and one puzzle is 10 pieces and the other puzzle is 10,000 pieces. Which puzzle do you think your team is going to be more successful at putting together in a normal cadence? Probably the one with 10 pieces and not 10,000. And so when we talk about blind spots, when we talk about visibility, it's not having 10,000 data points that we have to test and measure and look at. It's making sure that we're not blind to the core stuff that really matters. And I can't tell you how often I will see contractors. There's really two buckets here. One will have either not really any data at all and not any tracking and not any systems to track data. The other one will have an astronomical amount of data and 99% of it doesn't matter. Those are both forms of blind spots. We want to be looking at the right things at the right time and have visibility into really what's going on that moves the company forward. We want to have one source of truth. I had a sales manager a couple weeks ago and I said, well, how many sales do we make last month? And how many appointments did we run? And what was the close rate? It was just some very like sales management 101 stuff. And his answer was pretty funny. It was like, well, it depends on who you ask. Look, if I get a different answer for what we sold last month and how many appointments we got, depending on who I asked, that is not visibility. That's not knowing exactly what's going on. And this is actually a really common problem. Look at your own business. Can you answer exactly how many appointments you got last month? How many sales did you make? What was the revenue? Where did the leads come from? Were they referrals, self-gen, marketing? What type of marketing were they? All of those things are making sure that we have no blind spots. We know exactly what's going on. We have one source of truth. If I was to ask 3 different people in your company, would I get consistent answers? Or are those things kind of not really all that clear to everybody? And so you want to make sure that you have one source of truth that everybody's looking at. And that is how you get control and visibility and actually know what's really going on. If you think about repeatable management systems, we want clear priorities. One of the things that happens very often with the sales management position is we have a lot of expectations that are put on sales managers from various parts of the company. Operations think they should do this. Finance thinks they should do this. Our owner thinks they should do that. The sales reps want them to do this. Customers want them to do that. And what ends up happening is they don't really know what their job is supposed to be. And a sales manager needs to understand, just like all other roles, what are the things that I am in charge of? What are the priorities for me every day when I wake up? What are the things I need to be doing to actually do my job and move the company forward? And we want to get really clear on what those priorities are. We then want to have weekly ownership of what is happening. Now, when I say weekly ownership, I don't mean they work once a week. I mean they're accountable to you once a week in a weekly meeting, and they actually show up prepared, ready to go, and break it all down, and they have a full ownership of what is happening daily, and it's represented weekly so that you as the owner aren't stuck in the weeds every single day. I don't want you in the weeds every day. I want them in the weeds, but I want them to be accountable to you every single week. And so that's the system that we teach here. We teach our sales managers to be accountable daily. We teach our owners to check in weekly and make sure that there's a very tight cadence for how sales is being managed. That gives us a repeatable management system that we can basically plug and play people as we need to as the company grows. You may go from one sales manager to 2 to 10. I had 15 at one point. And guess what? Every time it was the same playbook. It was, here's how our management ecosystem works. And because I was dealing with all the individual reps underneath them, I could stay high level, building the company and doing the things that I need to be doing to support everybody else and keep my sanity while I was at it. Okay. So let's talk about getting everybody aligned and knowing what the plan is. We want visibility and alignment with our company as a whole. And this starts with accountability. You see, if you don't have clear priorities for your manager or for your team or for your sales team, how do you hold them accountable to anything? The answer is usually you can't, because they are going to have no real idea what it is that they are going to be held accountable for. And I see this constantly in this form. I'll have owners that will come to me and say, hey, my sales manager is not doing a good job. I'll say, awesome. How do you know that? Well, I just don't feel like they're doing a good job. Perfect. Have you actually explained to them what the job is and what's expected of them? No, I haven't. Okay. It'd be like trying to win a football game and you don't know what a touchdown is. You've not defined what the rules of the game are. How are you going to actually hold the sales manager accountable if they don't even understand what the priorities and the ownership of their department looks like? When you have those things cleared out, now we can actually start holding people accountable. And what do you know? It becomes a hell of a lot easier to do that because they have a really clear action plan that they need to be following. We want to make sure that there's shared goals. In other words, I had a sales manager and he said, my goal is to break the operations team. Well, that's a really great way to bankrupt your company. If the operations team doesn't know what the sales team is going to be doing, we're going to have a problem. They need to be walking in lockstep. Now, again, these are painful things that most companies crash and burn into as they try and grow to some of these bigger amounts. But eventually you reach a point where you can't just catch whatever sales throws. I had one company, for example, we sold so many projects that distribution actually couldn't provide our material. We had to have lines at the factory, like actual product lines at the factory that made our material. And if you think about that, I couldn't just overshoot my operations goal by 50% because they literally couldn't build it. And so we had to put in orders at the factory level to get our material. Those are the kind of things that you start running into. And then so if you have these siloed goals, you eventually crash and burn and run into big problems. And so we want to make sure that everybody knows the goal. When I talk to the operations team, I should get the same answers I do from your sales team, from your procurement team, finance. Everybody is speaking the same language, okay? There's an analogy I like to use for all of this, which is imagine you're trying to lose weight, but you don't own a scale. How successful do you think you'd be losing weight if you didn't own a scale? Probably not all that successful. That's like not having any visibility into what's actually happened. You can't check to see if the plan's actually working because you don't have a scale that's there. Now imagine I don't have a scale and I don't have a plan. I don't have a diet that I'm following. I don't have a weight loss system that I'm actually executing on. I just kind of eat something and hopefully see if I lose weight, but I can't even measure if I'm losing weight because I don't have a scale. So I just kind of eat it and see if I get skinnier. How successful do you think I'd be losing weight if I had those two things going against me? Now, if I had a scale and I had a weight loss plan, but my wife was feeding me pizza and ice cream every night because she didn't even know I was on a diet to begin with, do you think I'd be successful in my diet and losing weight? Maybe. It'd be a hell of a lot harder, wouldn't it? And that's where alignment comes in. We want to make sure that our sales team has a way to get support from the company. The company knows what we're doing. Everybody is accountable. Everybody can plan to it. And by the way, when we come up with, we call it a business roadmap in our business and with our clients, everybody signs off on it. Everybody agrees to it. And it becomes the plan of action. It becomes the rallying cry behind what we do. And it's amazing to see teams really start to work around each other and saying, hey, we're accountable to each other. I see where I fit in this ecosystem, and everybody has ownership over everything that they do. And so I want to be clear about who this is for. If you are still getting most of your business through word of mouth, referrals, whatever you personally generate, you're just probably too early. You haven't found the need yet to grow. You need a way of creating real sales opportunities for your company. And so this can be paid marketing, door to door, some channel that constantly just puts opportunities in front of the sales team. By the way, if you don't know how to build those things big, don't worry about it. We work with companies like that all the time. You have to actually want to build a bigger company for this to be worthwhile for you. So if you're at 5 million today, you want to get to 8 million, and that's like your big goal, and you want to stay there forever, there's nothing wrong with that. That is fantastic. But you don't need to build a great sales department to do that. You can just do that with you and your cousin and your uncle. Okay? If you're at 5, 10, 20 million bucks, you want to become a 40, 50, 60, $100 million company. But you know, the way I'm managing the sales team today is not going to get me there. The way I'm managing sales today isn't going to get me there. You should build a real sales department. You should have salespeople already, or you should be thinking about getting salespeople already, and be willing to make decisions, including sometimes the uncomfortable one. Because sometimes we'll discover that the thing that you're worried about isn't the problem. And sometimes we'll discover the thing you had hoped wasn't the problem absolutely is. Like, it is the thing that's holding you back. And so, maybe your sales manager needs help. And sometimes maybe you just have the wrong person in that seat. Maybe you need more reps. Maybe you need less. Maybe marketing's broken. Maybe recruiting is doing great. Maybe onboarding's the problem. Like, there's all kinds of things that can be the real reason. And so the point isn't to protect anybody's favorite theory of what's wrong with your company. The point is to find out why your business needs and why it's stalled and just deal with it. And there's one more qualifier that matters to me. And this is important for not only everybody that we work with, but I think just any contractor looking to grow. We only work with good contractors. And so if you don't treat your employees well, if you don't honor your commitments, if you don't pay people properly or operate with high moral and ethical standards, we're probably not going to get along well. And honestly, I hope you don't grow your company. Building a big company means that you're taking responsibility for a lot of people. You have your employees, their families, you have your customers, your community. And I take that seriously. I want to work with people that take it seriously too. It's always been something that's been incredibly important to me to make sure that we are just doing good work in what we do. And I think good contractors should win. We're not trying to scale junky, shitty contractors. We want good people to win. And that's the whole goal here. And so I think that you shouldn't have to choose between being great at what you do and building a big company. You shouldn't have to grind until you're, 80 years old, because nobody ever showed you how to do it. Nobody ever showed you how to run a large construction business that doesn't consume your life. And I don't think you should have to gamble everything just to try and get to the next level. Again, you built a great company. But if you want to actually get out of the weeds and enjoy the fruits of your labor, you're going to need visibility. You're going to need control. You're going to need alignment. And so if you're watching this right now and you're thinking, yep, that's us. Like Steve's talking to me right now. You've built a good company. Sales still feels like it's too dependent on you, or you're lacking confidence in what's happening. You're unsure of what's going on. You know you need a sales manager, or you already have one, but you're not really sure how to manage that person, or if they're doing a good job or not doing a good job. Can they get you to the next level? If you're just tired of wondering whether you're fixing the right problems, and you're actually serious about building a much bigger company without turning that company into your prison, I'm going to put a link down below to our document. This is what it looks like to work with us. I'll break down for you what Sales Architect is, that is our flagship program here, who it's for, who it's not for, what the current next step looks like for you, so you can actually see if we can help you out here. We want to help you out regardless and just give you the keys. But of course, if you'd like our help doing it with you and guiding you along the way, that's what we're here to do, is to help make it easier for you. We want the good guys to win. What we do is we start off with everybody with a one-on-one call. We go through, we break down where you're at, where you want to go, what are the things that are hurting you, and start getting you organized as fast as we possibly can. The number one thing we want to do is get rid of blind spots immediately, and then use good judgment to say, here's the one or two things that are really holding us back, and then help guide you along the way so that you can ultimately do the things that you want to do. If we look at your situation and you're too early, or there's something else you need to fix first, we'll just tell you, hey, you're not the right person for us. I'm very blessed to have worked with some really amazing people, and we would love to work with everybody, but we don't need to work with everybody. I'd love your business, but I don't need your business. And so if we're not the right fit for you, that is A-okay. I'd way rather tell you, go here, do something else. We're just not the right company for you right now. And maybe we'll be a good company for you later on. We'll show you what happens next. So anyways, if that's you, check out the doc down below. See if Sales Architect looks like the right fit for your company and where you're trying to take it and what you want to do. And just maybe it's time to stop being the owner and the sales manager and actually build like a real sales department so that you can hand it to somebody else. They know exactly what needs to be done. You know what it should look and feel like and how it should operate. And you get back to actually building the company you wanted to build when you set out to do this whole thing in the first place. So with that said, I'm Steve Huber. Thanks so much for the time today. Check out the doc down below, and I will talk to you all later. Bye.